Hello and welcome to Lesson 2. In this lesson, we'll cover launching the Scratch editor and just poking around and experimenting with all the different parts of the Scratch editor. I'm Al Swigert. This course follows the content of my book, Scratch Programming Playground. You can read this book online for free at inventwithscratch.com. We won't be programming in this lesson, but we will learn how the Scratch editor works and all the different parts in it. So go ahead and open up a web browser and go to scratch.mit.edu. and then click on Create, and this will run the online Scratch editor. Or if you've installed the offline editor, you can run this program like any other program on your computer. So I'm on Windows, so I'm going to click on the Start menu, and then select Scratch 2, and that will run the offline editor. So this is the Scratch editor. Now there's a lot of different parts to it, and it can look a little intimidating, but don't worry, we're going to be going through these one step at a time. So let's look at the different parts of the Scratch editor. Here in the upper left, there's the stage, and this is what your players and users are going to see when they're playing your game. The rest of the editor is what you, the programmer, will be using to program your game. But when other people are playing your game, or even when you're playing your own games, you're just going to be interacting with the stage. In fact, there's a blue button here in the upper left that will switch to presentation mode, and this will hide all the other parts of the editor so that you see just the stage. Now this is pretty boring. Your program doesn't do anything at all. You can click on the green flag to start the program, but we haven't added any code, so this doesn't do anything at all. Let's just click on this blue button and go back to the editor. Now on the right is the code area, also called the scripts area, and this is where you add all of your code that programs the behavior of the things on the stage. You can get code from the center part right here. You just have to drag each of these code blocks over to the scripts area. Now I'm going to click on the zoom button down here to make this a little bit easier to read. So this is a code block. This particular code block will cause the orange cat to move forward by 10 steps. And this will happen whenever this code block is run. And I can run this by double clicking on it. So I'll just double click on it. And you can see the cat moved 10 steps forward. This cat is known as a sprite. Sprites are sort of objects that are on the stage, kind of like how actors or props on a theater stage. Now you have an infinite supply of these code blocks. You can grab as many of these as you want. I can just keep pulling off more and more of these, as many as I want. And notice that each of these code blocks has a little pit on the top and a little stub on the bottom. This helps remind you that you can combine these together just by dragging them and pushing them close together. Now you can see that when this white highlight appears, I can just let go of the block and it'll automatically snap into place. So now when I double click on this, you can see it runs both of these code blocks. First it starts at the top and moves 10 steps, and then it goes down to the next code block, which it moves 10 steps again. So this moves the orange cat by 20 steps each time I double click on it. We can even combine this one over here, and now it moves 30 steps whenever I double click on this. And this is called a script. When you combine multiple code blocks together, it forms a script that the sprites on the stage follow. And you can click and drag these around the scripts area, but sometimes you'll want to remove some of these blocks. And that's easy to do. You just drag the block and you just pull it farther away so that the white outline disappears. And once that white outline disappears, I can just drop it and it'll be separated from the rest of the script. Then go ahead and add this turn clockwise 15 degrees block. You can see when I double click to run this block, the cat sprite will turn clockwise 15 degrees. So I can combine this together. So now when I double click this, the cat moves 10 steps forward, turns right 15 degrees, and then moves another 10 steps. Now if I ever want to get rid of this turn 15 degrees block, I can just click and drag and pull it off. And you'll notice that whenever I pull blocks off, it'll automatically take all the blocks under it with it. So if I just want to remove this turn clockwise block, I'll have to pull this off, and then pull off this move 10 steps block, and then reconnect it back to the rest of the script. So that's how I can remove this turn block away from it. Now in order to delete blocks, there's two ways you can do it. You can either right click on the block and select delete, and if you ever accidentally delete a block, you can always click on edit and undelete. And that'll give you the block that you just deleted back. Right-clicking and selecting delete is the first way to delete blocks. You can also just drag it back over the center area and let go, and that'll also delete the block. Notice that whenever you, just like how you can pull off a block and it'll automatically take everything underneath it as well, if I right click on this middle block and select delete, it'll also delete all the blocks underneath. So if I ever accidentally delete something, I can just click on edit, undelete, and bring it back. These are individual code blocks, and they combine together to form scripts, and your sprite can have multiple scripts inside of it, dictating how it behaves when your program is run. So your whole program has multiple sprites, and sprites can have multiple scripts, and scripts are made up of many of these code blocks. You don't have to remember all of this jargon. It'll be pretty obvious as you get some experience creating programs. There's also another option here, duplicate. And this is pretty handy if you ever just need to get a copy of all these blocks. You can just right click and select duplicate, and it'll just duplicate the block that you right clicked on as well as all the blocks underneath it as well. We don't actually need this many blocks, so I'm just going to drag all of these back over the center to delete them. Now the users of your program won't be double clicking on these scripts to run your program. Instead, they're going to be using this green flag to start the program. I'm going to move this back to the center. So inside the Scratch editor, you can drag these sprites around the stage, just like you can drag these scripts around. Notice, however, that your users won't be able to drag sprites around the stage. You can see I can't move this at all with the mouse. This is just when you're in the middle of programming your games, you can move the sprites around as you need them. Now there's a lot of different blocks in Scratch, and you'll become more familiar with them as you use them in your own programs. There's not just these dark blue code blocks here. You can also look right up here, and this is the block palette. You can see it contains all these different categories of blocks. So you can see each category has its own color. You might remember a palette is something you've probably seen before. Artists have these. They just need a piece of wood that has all of the different paint colors on them, and they can mix them together into different colors. And just like that, Scratch has these different colors for types of code blocks. Click on the purple looks category. You can see all these brand new blocks that are related to how sprites look. Or you can look at these sound code blocks by clicking on the sound category. There's a whole bunch of these. And you'll learn how each of these blocks works as you create more programs. So don't worry about memorizing all of these just at the start. Now, one really common block that you'll be using is this one in the brown events category, when green flag clicked. And notice it has a hump at the very top. You can't snap it into place underneath other blocks. This is always meant to be on the very top of a script, so you add blocks underneath it, right there. So when green flag clicked, we'll start running this script underneath it whenever the green flag is clicked by the user to start the program. In presentation mode, your players only see this, and they can only interact with the program at first by clicking on the green flag to start it off. And later, if they just want to stop or quit the program, they can click on this red stop sign to stop it. So we'll be using this when green flag clicked block a lot in our programs. Now, once you've been programming a lot and you've finished, or even if you're just in the middle of things and you want to be sure not to lose your work, you can save your programs by clicking on File and Save. So in the offline editor, I just have to save this file. I'll just call this demo and save. Whereas in the online editor, you'll enter the name of your project here in this text field, and then you can just click Save Now. And this will save your work, and it's a good idea every 10 or 15 minutes just to save your program, just in case the web browser crashes or the offline editor crashes, and then you won't lose that much work. So there's a lot more to the Scratch editor than just what I've covered here, but this is all the basics that you'll need to get started. In the next lesson, we'll get right into it and start creating a rainbow line art program. And I'm really excited to get started with that.